Hello, I'm Kyle Monaghan, and I'm here today to present my persuasive speech. And here's my audience. In the early 1900s, there were remedies for all types of ailments. A common thing to give to a child that had a cough or a headache actually turned out to be heroin. Luckily, we have the FDA now, and that is because we've realized that we can't have a for-profit industry self-regulate. Unfortunately, there's another industry in America which has almost zero regulation and deals with life and death on a daily basis. And that is the industry of forensic evidence and expert witness testimony. It is through my research of first talking to the North Carolina Center on Actual Innocence chair member, listening to discussions by the head of the Innocence Project, reading FBI briefings, reading articles from MSNBC, PBS, and BBC, that I've come to the conclusion that we need a national board certifying forensic evidence and expert witness testimony. I'm going to prove this through 3 different points. First, I'm going to discuss some forms of forensic evidence. Then I'm going to talk about why this fallacious evidence is continuing to be used in courtrooms. And then I'm going to say how we can fix this problem. And that is, of course, through a national board certifying it. First, let's talk about forensic evidence as it is now. The head of the Innocence Project has stated that fingerprint analysis was invented in the 1890s when a scientist made the claim that all fingerprints are unique. However, ever since that was just assumed accurate, and not a single study has confirmed that fingerprints are in fact unique. In certain cities, they might have 10 points matching. In other cities, they might have 15 points of matching to say if something is a match or not. There's no standardization to decide if a partial fingerprint is enough, if a full fingerprint is enough, and this is the issue. So we have fingerprint analysis just going on with no standardization. In fact, PBS released a study performed where fingerprint analysts were given the same fingerprints that they were given before without their knowledge. 50% of the results were different than they initially were. We also have bite mark analysis. This is, in fact, a very fallacious form of forensic evidence. It was invented in the 1950s when a detective realized that a murder suspect ate some of the food at the house. He asked a local dentist if he could match the bite marks, and they were considered a match. He was presented at court saying that this is an exact match. This is the murderer. That court case was used as precedent as why bite marks are continuing to be used. However, that and the other case in support of bite mark analysis have both been overturned. There's also hair analysis. The FBI released a study 2 years ago stating that 90% of testimony given by the FBI in fact contained inaccuracies when it was in regards to hair analysis. Another study published by the Innocence Project states that 60% of overturned cases have forensic evidence in support of the initial, but that got turned over due to DNA testing. The reason this continues to go on is because of how the courts work. Courts are not laboratories. They work off of precedents. And so just in the case of the bite mark analysis, once bite marks were entered into court, that was used as precedents as to why bite marks are allowed to be used in court for future cases, despite the fact that those first 2 cases were both overturned. The National Academy of Science states that forensic evidence do not meet the fundamental requirements for science at all, and yet they continue to be used. And part of the problem in the courts too is the expert witness testimony. PBS did an in-depth study of how long it takes to become an expert witness. In 1 day, and $650 later, they became a certified forensic consultant. These are considered what PBS calls diploma mills, not real colleges, where this test had a 99% pass rate. Clearly, it does not hold up to the rigor of any other scientific study. And yet, it continues to be moved on. So what we need is a national board certifying forensic evidence. As Judge Donald Shelton said of the Michigan Circuit Court, we need a body that can say these are scientifically based experts. Almost every other field, from medical science to engineering to even hairstylists, have regulations based on what is appropriate according to the state and federal government. And yet, when it comes to forensic evidence, we have no certifying board saying that what is and is not all right scientific evidence. So in conclusion, I am trying to persuade us all to please appeal to the idea that we need a overall governing board certifying forensic evidence and witness testimony. We need that because if we look at the current forensic evidence, it doesn't hold to any other scientific rigor. We look at why it's in the court system, it's simply because it was in the courts in the past and thus is continued to be accepted. And then finally we realize that the only solution to this is a national board certifying forensic evidence. I yield the rest of my time for questions, and thank you so much.
All right.
Yes?
I have a question. Are there any other types of forensic testing and evidence that are ineffective or that are bad?
Yeah, absolutely. For a long time, lie detectors were used. They are a 100-year-old piece of science equipment. This is, no other body of science would use 100-year-old equipment and call it cutting edge. There was also, in one case, somebody said a forensic investigator was willing to say that they smelled decomposing body parts, and that was used as testimony, that they were an expert enough to know what a human body smells like. So there's almost no standardization. As long as a scientist is willing to be put on the stand and defend himself, any bit of forensic evidence can be put into a case.
Has there ever been a case of fingerprinting that led to a false arrest?
Yeah, in fact, one of the largest cases in 2004 in the Madrid bombing, the man who was originally arrested for that he was found because the FBI, who was helping Interpol look for the perpetrator of the bombing, did a fingerprint scan, and they found him because he was a former U.S. in the Army. He was never there. In fact, video footage shows who the true perpetrator was, but the FBI said his fingerprints were 100% match. In fact, the head of the FBI fingerprint unit said it was 100% match. He's never been to Spain. He was in Oregon the whole time.
That's crazy.
Would this make it easier for defendants to get off?
I don't think it's going to make it easier for defendants or prosecutors. What I think it's going to do is make it easier for the jury to decide what is truly happening. When all forensic evidence is formalized and standardized, when it is presented in a court, you know that this is in fact true evidence. As it happens right now, forensic evidence is presented and then countered and then presented and countered. If we have a standardizing board, we can make it so that once it's entered into the courtroom, this is fact. This is what we can scientifically prove. Right now, claims are hyperbolized and there is no standardization. Thank you all very much.